Welcome, everybody. Sorry we're getting started just a couple minutes late. It's been a busy morning, and everyone's got lots of good questions that are keeping me over the time limit. Good news is I don't have anything at 12, so if you're all able to stick around after and have extra questions, we'll be able to go through them. I just want to say hello to some familiar faces on this training, and you might be thinking, okay, we signed up for Portal training. What is this applications and advanced topics? Well, you're you're going to learn about Portal, but we're kind of redesigning some of this training because mostly, to be honest, everything that I'm going to teach you here is applicable to your Streamline website as well. And we'll go through sort of what the basics of this all kind of involve, and we'll talk a little bit about Portal specific things. But truly, a lot of what you're going to be doing in Portal is kind of the next step, the next iteration of what you would be doing with anything kind of Streamline related. The getting started training is kind of the first phase. We usually try to get people through that. That kind of walks you through stuff like, how to, just add a meeting or, basic page creation and kind of how to add a picture to a page. Well, this is really taking it to the next step and kind of how to really solve real problems, how to tackle, something like, launching a portal, getting your users in there, really driving and delivering value for the people that are going to be, getting in there and actually utilizing it, right? So without too much further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. I like to do a little introduction in case you haven't met me before or aren't familiar with any of the way that I kind of run these kinds of things. My name is Chris Ryan. I'm the head of customer happiness here at Streamline. So if you're not happy, then I'm not doing my job, obviously. So we want to fix that as soon as we can. The little one there is Luke, and he's not here today, thankfully. He's back in daycare, so you won't have to hear him yell at me for more food or whatever he wants. I'm based out of Sacramento along with the entire Streamline team. Of course, I'm working from home, and every time I do this these days, I always kind of want to dress up my walls a little bit more, and then I forget and get busy. You probably see me if you've done any of our live events on some of those, and so you'll kind of see me in this situation a lot. And just some of my interests and stuff like playing tennis and video games. So you get a little Luigi action in there. Anywho, enough about me because that's not really the important part. Let's talk about what we're going to be covering today. And everything is going to be done in the context of my portal site, kind of going through how to, kind of set it up and manage it and deliver all this information that we want to share. But what we'll be kind of covering, from that is again, stuff that'll be applicable to both sides, both the web and the portal side. Things like user management and permissions are functionally the same. There are some differences in Portal in terms of the types of users. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, how we can kind of restrict access for our kind of non-administrative staff members. We also want to talk about forms and managing submissions. A lot of what you're going to be doing in Portal or as you kind of move up and become more advanced in Streamline is really using web forms and collecting information, converting paper forms and kind of analog processes into digital, more efficient processes that you can actually manage the workflow of. We're going to talk a little bit about information architecture. We touch on that in some of our basic training, but we really don't talk a lot about how do you just organize a website, whether it be public or private. That's a pretty big topic. We won't be able to solve all of your IA questions, information architecture, IA. That's kind of the cool acronym for it, I guess. But we will give you an idea of how to approach it because a lot of what you're going to be doing, if you're really trying to, take your website to the next level, or if you're building out a portal site for the first time, is thinking about, information architecture. How do we organize our stuff, all of our content, in a way that's, easy to find, that's relevant for our audience, which in this case is, for you all likely to be staff members and stuff like that. So those are all kind of considerations that you're going to want to make. We're also going to talk about how to share your content with Engage. Again, if you're trying to kind of up your game on the website, that becomes an important part of what you're doing. And in Portal, Engage is included at no cost, pretty much forever for anyone adopting it these days. I don't know how long we're going to run that promotion, but you'll never have to pay for Engage on your portal. It's just going to be turned on, ready to rock. And so we'll show you a little bit about how you can use that. We'll also talk about third-party resources because, Streamline doesn't do everything yet. It's definitely going to get there, but we will kind of go and I'll show you a little bit of how you can easily grab, like other things that are out there that may fulfill some kind of need that you have, and how to kind of bring that into your to your site, whether it be web or portal. And then finally, I'll run through some examples and use cases. Just if you've seen some of our other like workshops and things like that, they might be a little bit repetitive, but just reminders of things that people are already doing with their portals, and just kind of ways that people are kind of taking their kind of their use of the platform more generally to the next level. Before we get into that, though, I always want to stress with something like an intranet site or a portal site that you ask yourself why. Like, obviously, you've already decided that it's a good idea to move forward with this, but I think really understanding why you're doing it is critical, because success for these types of projects relies on driving the usage from your staff members, volunteers, board members, whoever's going to be participating in this. And there's no guarantee that they're going to love this. So you really have to think about, why are we doing this? What problems are we going to solve? How can we make this valuable for them so that everyone's like, yeah, this is great. Thank you for doing that. Or, because no one wants to just have one more thing. This is going to be different for every district. Most folks are looking for ways to, just generally be more efficient, be more accessible, more streamlined. Maybe you want to convert, some of your paper forms into web forms, or just store all your stuff in one place. Or organize lots of information in a relatively normal or easily discoverable way. Maybe you want to conduct surveys or collect feedback internally, or all kinds of things that you might want to do externally as well. All these are really good reasons to kind of go above and beyond just the basics of whatever you're doing, right? Because everyone can just kind of go in and do their meetings and fill out their agendas and kind of do the very minimum. That's fine. But once you go beyond that, you really want to make sure you understand why you're doing it and be committed to that and really invest in it. Because if you go halfway on it, you tend to create more problems for yourself. And I'll kind of show you what I mean. But it's best to focus, I think, on like 2 to 3 items, really nail those down, the things that you're going to have everyone really come in and use the portal for most likely, and then really make sure that those are solid. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in, and I will kind of jump into our training area here. A lot of you, if you've been logging in recently, have seen some of the updates we've made as part of our platform release. The platform is kind of meant to unite some of our new tools, so you'll have one screen where you can access, for example, your actual website, the public-facing website, as well as your portal site. You can switch back and forth between those, which is kind of cool. You'll also be able to see things like how many visits you got, how many subscribers you have through Engage, how many sends you've completed through the campaign process and Engage as well, plus a lot of other stuff here. But this is going to be something you'll use a little bit more now that you do have multiple sites to interact with. Like I mentioned earlier, pretty much everything you're going to learn here is going to be applicable to both. I mean, the platforms are designed to work very similarly, so that if we release updates for one, it applies to both, and that way we can really kind of up the value there, and you don't have to relearn very much. The only major difference between your portal site and your website is you're not going to have a meetings or compliance tab. Since those aren't really relevant, those are designed specifically for public-facing district websites. We kind of pulled those out, but otherwise all the same functionality is visible there. Now, another thing that's the same but sort of different here is going to be the user management. So I want to start there, so to kind of explain how this is all going to work. Initially, for your portal, access should be restricted to just this core team of people that are working on the site. You'll all have user accounts, or should have user accounts set up like this. And if you don't, then anyone who does have access to your portal can come in here, or at least currently should be able to come in here and hit new user. Create that user just like this. You can fill in the email, bob@bobbert.com. Bobbert, and he is head of Bob. All right. So we've got our new person in there. Now, here's where it becomes kind of important to think about permissions. For your public-facing website, when you add a user, they're generally an admin that you want to have, be able to add, to be able to edit everything. So you would check on all these boxes. For portal, only a few people should have these permissions enabled, probably the people that I'm talking to now. Everybody else shouldn't have anything checked. You can still create an account with no permissions. What can that account do? Just log in and access the site. That's all they can do. For portal, you need to at least have this set up to access any of the content that you add. That's the whole point of portal, is that it's secure from the public. So this is the kind of profile you want to create for what we call the standard users, the people that you want to have access to the content but not make any changes. So if we were to leave this alone, our pal Bobbert here would be invited as a standard user. If you check any one of these, you're giving them administrative access, so you would be adding what we would call an admin user. So that's really the only major thing you have to worry about there. I'm not going to invite Bob at all because I don't even know if that's a real thing. Here is what so as soon as you save them, it shoots off a welcome email to that individual. Here's what the welcome email looks like in their inbox. It just says hello. There's their email address. Shows them the URL. If they click on accept invitation, they'll be prompted to choose a password, and they're in. So they get logged right in. So, and I think I saw that or had this on the welcome screen. If you do have questions about any of this, or if you have comments, want to raise your hand about something, you can use the chat or the Q&A, and I'm happy to help you out there or answer any question you have. So that's pretty much it for the user management. I do want to talk a little bit about forms, because forms become kind of some of the main things that you'll do with a portal, or even as you're trying to kind of up your game on the website. There's lots of surveys and ways that you want to interact with the public now that you can't necessarily do in person. Same thing's going to be true of your staff members, right? So one of the things that really drives usage of Portal is taking analog processes that are right now inefficient or maybe even impossible and converting them into something that's really easy to manage online. That's going to get people to log in and actually want to use this because it's going to be easier for them, versus just like if it's just storing a bunch of documents and not really part of anyone's daily processes. Well, it's nice to have, but it may not be the most valuable thing that you have at your disposal to kind of make your district run more efficiently. So creating a form that that just replaces some of that stuff and makes you more efficient is kind of the name of the game, and that's going to be different for every district. I'm just going to throw out an example. Let's create an expense submission form and kind of walk through what that looks like, the options that you have available to you, and importantly, how you can now manage that submission once it's been complete. So we're going to do what we would do in our normal, normal Streamline website. We'll go into content, and we're just going to create a new page where an expense form would live. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Add New button, and I'm going to call this Submit Your Expenses. And, for something like this, you can have some, text and stuff in here and kind of do this and fill out this form by 5 p.m. Friday each week, or you don't get paid. So I'll just go ahead and put that little, maybe that little caveat there. Actually, let's make that a call out so that everyone really sees it. And what we're going to do is insert a simple form element. And you can do that. So if you haven't done this before, elements are these little things over here. And if any of this kind of basic stuff seems, if you're like, wait, what is he doing? Good idea to review the getting started training, because it'll explain some of this stuff. We are assuming some of that knowledge here in the kind of advanced training, or a little bit more advanced training, I should say. What we're going to do is insert the form element, okay? And so that's going to be a simple to use form builder where you can build out all kinds of different fields, yes, no, multiple choice, that kind of stuff. And I'll show you kind of how that works. So once you hit insert, it'll bring up the form editor, and you can have as many fields on this form as you need. So the only rule disclaimer is don't use this to collect social security numbers and stuff. There's some security reasons why you don't necessarily want to do that. You can collect partial SSNs and have other processes for those. If you have any questions about that, let me know. But for the most part, for a lot of these things, it should be pretty straightforward. So what I like to do is just add some fields. And like I said, you can add as many as you want or remove them later, but it just kind of gives me some room to play with. And you can put stuff in here like your name, first and last. Maybe date of expense. And you can even kind of identify how you want that to be formatted. So maybe month, day, year, or something like that. You can put expense type, which might be kind of fun, right? And I like to kind of just label all the fields first before I go in and kind of continue to customize them. So kind of thinking through how this will look. And if you have that form in front of you as a paper form or as a digital form, you can just kind of refer to that. So you can say something like amount. That probably would be important. Let's see. Receipt. All right, there we go. We're going to keep this really simple so that you don't have to sit there and watch me type forever. So we have our fields there. Now let's update the type so that we can make sure we're getting the right kinds of information. So text field is a type of field that's the basic one. It's just a line where someone types stuff in, they get one line of entry, and that's it. Works really well for stuff like your name, an amount, etc., that kind of thing. It works well for the date type as well. For something like expense type, though, we probably have a list of categories or certain things that's already in mind. We don't want them to have to retype that each time. So we're going to update the field type to the drop-down box. You have the ability to create checkboxes and radio selections and drop-downs, and those can all be configured kind of as like little mini forms, if you will. So if I hit the configure button, I can add options to this drop-down, and I'll do the same thing. I'll give myself some room here. I'll put, entertainment, food and dining, travel, housing. I don't know. You get the idea. And can users select multiple items? Probably for something like this, we wouldn't want them to do that, but you do have that option for people that may need to select multiple things. So now that drop down has been configured, you could also, if you wanted to, for example, add another field in here and put explain why you made this expense. I don't know why you would do this, but you could. For something that requires longer input, more response than just a single line, you can also choose a text area field. So that allows them to kind of type in, their whole story or what have you. And this is just an example for expenses, but start thinking about those paper processes, those analog processes, and start to get them kind of converted over here, and you'll see some good things that come out. So I'll go ahead and make all these items required. Ooh, one last thing. So for receipt, you can also change this into a file upload option. So they can actually upload like a picture of the receipt, or that's probably the only thing they would upload, but you get the idea. Something like that is really easy to add. So I'll leave all those required. I'll leave that last one optional since it's kind of silly. So these are the components or the fields we have in this form. There's also a form settings tab. And this is relatively new. You can now assign every submission that comes through this to a specific user from the users tab that we just looked at. So if you have some of your folks in there and they need to be the ones that are in charge of this, so maybe Maria is the one that has to do all the expense submission, kind of work. I'll go ahead and assign that to her. We can also kind of CC other folks in here as well in that field, but I'm just going to go ahead and assign this form to Maria. She's going to get an email alert, by the way, saying, hey, someone just assigned something to you. And then as people submit stuff, she's going to get this alert each time, which kind of shows that submission coming through just like that. And this is a time off request that I was assigned, but you can kind of imagine what it would look like for the expense report. So I'll go back over here. So here's our page back on our site. We've got our page. There's our form right there, looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and just save and close that. So right now our page is just like on any Streamline site. Our page is just kind of hanging out here in the content area, and you can click on the title to go to the page. And here's the actual page itself. I'm going to fill it out. Chris Ryan. Put this as my birthday recently. I will update this as, I'll leave it as entertainment. I'll put 50,000. And you could even put like a little dollar sign there as well. I will upload a receipt, which is going to be a picture of some money. It was my birthday. And I will now submit this. Ta-da! So now I got a nice little confirmation message. I'm good. I've submitted my expenses. I can now move on with my life. Now Maria is going to get pinged with this email, right, saying, hey, you got to log in here and view the submission. So she clicks on that, and it's going to take her into the new form submission screen. And so this is where your ability to interact with each other and kind of be able to manage some of the workflows that trigger from somebody submitting something, whether it be on your public site or your private site. There's action that needs to be taken. So you'll be able to see all your form submissions here. And we've condensed this so you don't see like the entire submission. Before you would see like for really long like job application type forms, this could get really overwhelming. So now they're all kind of hidden, and you can kind of expand them to see, but you can see that Maria is the one that's assigned there, which is awesome. She now will come in here and she'll have the job of viewing and editing this submission, and what she can do is mark it as either completed if she's taken some kind of action on it. If she hasn't, then she can leave it as submitted. Or if it was like, and this would be more relevant for like your public website, like if you get a spam message or something like that, you can just archive it. But otherwise, you can mark it as complete. You could reassign it to somebody else. So I could assign it to Chris now that it's been complete if I wanted to. And then I'll go ahead and mark it there. And you'll see that it actually disappears from the screen because there are different views now for the different stages. If you want to see all your completed items, you would choose the drop down there, or you can look at all your archived items. I don't have any right now. So, or we can go back to seeing all the submitted stuff, and you can go ahead and process then each of these other submissions or hand them off or what have you. You can also, if you want to, filter by the page. So you could come in here and say, all right, well, let's look at all of our expenses that have been completed. So I've now set up my filters. So here's all the items that appear on that page, and then you can download all of them. So if you want to kind of analyze all the data or see it all in one spreadsheet, you just filter by the page type and then download it, and boom, there you go. So let me know if you have any questions about that. That's really going to be a main driver of at least how we've seen a lot of our initial users use Portal, and kind of see some benefit from it, is that they're just totally transforming, how they're collecting information, how they're processing the information from kind of this in-person thing, or maybe having it disparate all over all these other different applications and kind of methods, to just this one area here that you can manage. So let's go back here and let's contemplate our survey page. And this is a problem you're going to have no matter if it's the public site or the portal site. But this page is kind of chilling on its own. We have the visibility for it in the content area, but if for our standard users coming to the site, they don't have the ability to go into content. They can see the page just like like any normal visitor could, but they're not going to be able to find that survey very easily. So just like on your public website, information architecture, how you're organizing the content, really matters. And in fact, it might matter even more in some ways for your portal site, because you have a very focused audience. These people are often kind of not going to tolerate a lot of stuff. They want to just get in and find their information, right? They're busy people. They're your employees. They got a lot of work to do. So there's you have to be really sensitive about that. And that kind of goes back to the why question. What are the most important things that you're really trying to feature and drive into the portal? Those are the things that you want to be the most explicit. Just like your website, though, there's only two ways to do it. There's only two ways to really feature any bit of content on the site. It's either in the menu right up here, which is going to be on every page you go to, or as a teaser. And this is all these things down here, everything, all the links you've seen on different pages as you go through Streamline, those are all teasers, or which is just basically a link to a page. So we'll go ahead and just do a quick review of the menus to kind of give you a sense of why you would choose one or the other. It's not an either or, you can do both. But the menu here, just as a reminder, again, if you haven't gone through the basic training or what have you, I recommend you do that. There's also a little 2-minute tutorial now embedded on the menus page that you can watch to kind of remind you of some of the functionality. But the way you edit that menu that runs along the top of the page is really through this screen, just by moving these items around. And this is sort of the structure of the menu, but in an outline format. And you'll see the top level items are the ones leftmost indented. You can group together items just by kind of tucking them right under the main level items. And if you want to move these around, you just click and hold them, and you can move them around. And even create whole new groups. So you could put, staff training under forms or something like that, and make this into a little subgroup if you want to. I don't want to do any of that, so I'm going to undo that. What you can also do with this menu area, though, which is kind of cool, is use it for planning. Not a lot of folks think about that, but these are just menu items. They're not actual pages. So, for example, if I wanted to kind of plan a whole new section, maybe we're thinking about adding a training section, or if you just kind of want to plan your initial architecture, you can just add a bunch of menu items in here. And as long as they're not linked to an actual page, or if they're linked to a page that's unpublished, they don't appear at all. So if you're not ready to deploy like the full thing, don't put like a bunch of empty placeholders. It's just going to confuse the people that are coming into your portal. They don't need to see like all these work in progress pages and stuff like that. Just keep those behind the scenes and just show them the stuff that they're actually able to use and that's ready to go. Okay, that's what I would recommend anyway. And let's say we wanted to create like a new training section of the website. We're going to post all of our training stuff on there. We're going to post videos, forms for them to fill out, for them to certify they've done the training or whatever it is you want to kind of do. What you might do is just come in and just start building that structure. And I'll go ahead and tuck in. We'll put, staff training. We can put board training. And we'll do volunteer training. I don't know why we would have all that, but we could if we wanted to. All we're not going to do, we're just not going to link this to any content yet. Or if we do, like I said, we're going to link it to unpublished pages. And then we'll still see it here, but it won't be visible on the actual menu. But then when we're ready, we go in, we build the content, and we can start linking it all up, and everything will look nice and ready to go. But until then, we can keep it nice and private. And we can keep going here. Like you could have, sexual harassment. If you really wanted to kind of make it a much more, expense reporting. I don't know. You can kind of add little subcategories and stuff there, but kind of create that whole thing out. All you have to do is hit save, and like I said, nothing changes here until we actually put, a page to link those to. And I'll show you if I go back to menus that some of these items are gray up here as well, but they actually have pages. That's because those pages are unpublished. So you can kind of, start to build it here. Just make sure whatever it's connected to isn't published, which you can see if I'm editing a page. So if you click on the link icon, you can actually go and edit this actual page, which is kind of cool. Just make sure that that little checkbox is unchecked, and that will stay unpublished for you. Some other things to consider in terms of best practices, because you can kind of see you've got like these little header pages and stuff. And most of the time what you're looking for are kind of these things here. But it's a good idea when you're adding new header pages right here that if you click on them that you set these up to be what we call landing pages. And it's not required and it doesn't automatically happen, but every page that's under here you can tease on the resources page. So you can tease forms here, you can tease documents here, and policies, just like you see right here. And then it makes it sort of like an easy way to jump around these items and kind of see everything at a glance without having to go through each of the menu items there. And you can do that at pretty much any level. So if I click on forms right here, you can see all of my different forms all teased on this page. I could have included that in the menu as well and made them sub-items, but I didn't because I don't want my menu to be too busy and complicated. And I would really try to recommend that you kind of leave most of the organization for little things to teasers and kind of use the menu for big picture things. Because if your menu gets too deep, like if you have to kind of navigate, it's just hard to remember kind of where stuff is and how to find it. So rather, like if you have 10 forms, don't list all 10 of them here. Just link to the forms page and link all the 10 pages on this area right there. So for example, our submit your expenses page is just kind of sitting on an island right now. It's not really easily discoverable. The best place we want to kind of add that would probably be this forms page here. Totally up to you, of course. So what I would recommend doing is hitting the edit button, and then we can expand either one of these teaser zones. Every page, as a reminder, has these little areas where you can link to or tease other pages. And if I expand that, we're going to see our time off page and our timesheet page being teased right here. So what we'll do is hit add new, which brings up our page library. So here's all the different pages we've added. Well, here's the one that we just created, the expenses one, and boom, now that's being teased here as well. So if we save and close our forms page, we've now made this visible or explicit, easily discoverable, and we didn't overcrowd our menus by doing that. Again, totally up to you. Sometimes it'll be easier and more explicit to have more menu items, but you have options. You can use the page itself almost like a folder or a way to collect other pages that are relevant to it. And so now someone can just click on submit your expenses and jump right in there. So there you go. Let me know if you have questions about any of that. What I really recommend before you ever start touching any of this is just have a brainstorm session. I know like that sounds kind of silly. We do a ton of brainstorms though for all kinds of stuff, and it's really effective just to get all your ideas out there, map them all out, and then just kind of think through a logical order of that. And it doesn't have to be logical to everybody. It needs to be logical just to your people. So think through what kind of makes sense to your folks. You know them better than anybody. And then start to kind of put that onto paper. Once you get that kind of outline considered, then I think going in and implementing it into the menu, sort of using these sort of skeletal approach here where you can kind of link to, just kind of leaving it alone before you link to things is a really good way to kind of ease into it. But again, just focus on the critical stuff, get that right first before you go and try to build everything. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Engage. So you've got that turned on. I mean, we could turn it off for you if you wanted to, but it's free, like I said, forever. So you got that turned on, and Engage, when it's it's attached to Portal, is just for communicating with your Portal people. When it's attached to your website, that's really more for communicating with the public. So most of the stuff you're going to be sending out through Engage for Portal will be internal things like expense reports, reminders, or maybe a welcome message or something like that. But it works the exact same way in terms of how you want to send stuff out. You just come up here on the website, I should say. You come up here where it says email. You click on the email button, and it will convert this page into an email. Not a very exciting one because the form still has to be filled out online, so you just end up with like a little button right there. But what if you came up with, I don't know, maybe like a newsletter or something like that? Really common for districts to have internal communications on a regular basis, right? Especially if you have, staff in remote places or if you're starting to grow. So you can see here on our training portal, we do have a news and events page. And this is our, kind of our quarterly newsletter that we've got. And we have, on this page, we've kind of built different kind of archive pages, if you will. And we can come in and we can open up our summer newsletter. And I'll kind of walk you through how this was set up. But basically, it's just what we call a landing page. It's just another page that's collecting news articles that we've written and is teasing them here. So let's say we had a news story we wanted to add to our newsletter before we sent that out. How would we do that? Well, you would go directly to the newsletter page you've created, which is this one. You could hit the edit button right up here at the top. And your kind of newsletter can have sort of like a little introductory note there or what have you. Fortunately, it's not as hot as it was when I first wrote this. And I have air conditioning again, which is really nice. But what we'll do is we'll again expand that below main body content teaser zone. This is where all of our, kind of our news articles are going to live to kind of be, kind of organize this newsletter here. And if we want to add another news article, we just hit the big add new button. And we would find that article here in this list. Let's say it doesn't exist. Maybe we want to create a brand new one. So we're going to hit new, and we're going to title this Frito Fridays are back. That's right, folks. Frito-Lay, what are those, like bean bowls? Bean bowl or chili bowls? Chili bowls, I think is what they are. Those things were good when I was a kid. Back on Fridays. Come to our cafeteria. Oh boy. At 12 p.m. to get your free chow. So pretty simple, pretty silly. Maybe we'll add a little image here just for fun. These aren't very fun at all. So we're just going to add this picture right there of us. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit select, or save, I should say, and now we've added a new page to our newsletter. Yay. And if we save and close this, you'll see that it appears right here on this newsletter page. Ta-da. Of course, we reused that image a few times, but there you go. So the reason why Engage is nice is because, yeah, you've got that on the website, and it looks very nice there. But most people probably want to just kind of casually scroll through this or read this in their inbox, maybe in the morning, and just kind of check out what's interesting, if they can click on stuff if they want to or not. Well, what you can do is just hit the email button right up here, and it converts all of that into a lovely email. And each of these links is clickable. You go directly into that article on the website or on the portal site in this case. But this should work in just about everybody's inbox, which is nice. You would just come up here, select the list that you want to send it to. So I can send this to our employee list, which only has a couple people in it, and just hit email this page. So there you go. So now I'm going to send that out, and we have success. Which is great. So we've sent that out. You can also track this. And this is where it really gets nice for, employee type things where, you're really trying to make sure that people are doing the right thing and actually reading stuff that you're sending out, right? So now you can come over here into the Engage tab. which will be set up for you, or at least be visible to you because you have this enabled. And you're going to see all of your what we call campaigns listed here. So every time you click the send button, you're really creating an email campaign, and that email campaign has stats that can be tracked. And so you can actually go in and see all of your employees, what they've done. Oops, if you hit view details, I can see, all right, good job, Steven. You opened it, or maybe there was something to click on. We can track that as well. But it looks like Chris and Maria are slacking here. You could check that out, a couple of days later, just refresh that, and you can kind of see the updated stats, and you can see all that information there as well. So obviously helpful for your public communication, but also your internal communication for accountability and things like that in case you ever really need to make sure someone saw something. So let me know if there's any questions about that. All the different campaigns will be listed out there. Obviously, I only have the one there. You can also add other lists. So you can create lists for your board members, your staff members, for the portal side. You can, for the public side, create lists for different topics or different, programs that you're running. And then, of course, you can import and add contacts. So if you're already using an existing tool like this, just hit import contacts and boom, it all comes in. Let me know again if you have any questions about that. So in addition to things like, creating forms, creating an internal newsletter, maybe just posting things like documents, like you can come in here and just create like a simple document page. You just dump a bunch of stuff in there. Pretty easy to do using the file elements, which again is covered in some of the getting started trainings. Portal's also a place where you might want to do a lot of things that, maybe it's not necessarily able to do directly. Of course, you can create, like, for example, a calendar. But the calendar that you're going to add here, so for example, if I came in and created a calendar page, maybe we want to kind of bring everyone together and sync everybody up. You can add a new page, and you can, as an element, insert our calendar widget, okay? And what that will do is collect all the meetings and all the event pages on your site and display them on a calendar. That's really all it does, though, which is, for that purpose is fine. But it's not going to show, like, if you have calendars in other locations, maybe you have it through Outlook or you have it through Google Calendar or some other service. Maybe you have multiple calendars. Sometimes people have, lots of things going on and have a lot of different, calendars to reflect that. Well, for that, you might need to kind of start thinking about third-party resources in general. Plugins or ways of bringing in that content into the portal so that it's all in one location. So you're not having to send people out or what have you. And there's ways to do that. Pretty easy ways, in fact, in a lot of cases. And I'll go ahead and remove this calendar here. And what I'll show you is, for example, let's say, and it works very similarly with Outlook, and it kind of depends on what you're using, but let's say you're using Google Calendar like we do. A lot of those types of, these types of features have the ability to, let me click on this, to embed that calendar somewhere else. So for example, and this is how it looks in Google, it looks a little bit different in your thing probably, or whatever you're using. You can come in here and just copy and paste this iframe code, and I'll show you how to add it to your Streamline website or portal site. You basically just come back over here, and you're going to add another element, but this time, instead of choosing calendar, you're going to use HTML. And this is what you'll basically use for any kind of plugin, any kind of third-party resource. I don't expect you to be able to do this on your own. If you are able to, awesome, go for it. If you need any kind of assistance with HTML related stuff, if you're thinking, oh well, there's a third-party kind of thing I want to integrate, that's a great excuse to give me a call or shoot a ticket our way, and let's set up a meeting. But some of these services make it pretty easy. Like, for example, most of just about anybody can come in here and just paste that in. You don't even have to know what that means. Just hit save, and it's going to create that HTML element there. Now, it doesn't look very interesting yet, but let me show you what we end up with. So I'm going to call this page calendar. And I'm going to save and close that. And now I've got a new calendar page here, right? And if I click on the title, it'll take me to the page we just created, which now has my very busy looking calendar embedded in it. So that's pretty cool. And you can stack calendars. You could put other things in there. You can embed just about, all kinds of things in your portal site. And it doesn't really matter if it's revealing kind of private information, right? Like, this is a portal. No one's going to see my calendar except for the people that I, obviously want to share it with. So that's kind of a nice thing to consider for that side of things. And so what we can also do, just to kind of, talk about this a little bit, if we go back to the home page, you know, I would really strongly recommend that when you're initially setting things up and you're inviting people in, which we'll kind of talk about here at the end, that you have as little stuff here on the homepage as possible. You don't want to overwhelm anyone. You don't want to confuse them about where to go. And so be deliberate about, how you're placing stuff on here. It still works the same way. You still have the carousel, you have the quick links, and you have the sort of these like kind of a general area to tease other pages. But just like I said, just kind of be careful. Make sure your menu's nice and clean. You don't need to do too much with the carousel. At least not a lot of folks have so far, unless you have a lot of big projects coming up. But I think for the most part, you want your portal to look pretty similar from day to day, so that people are used to using it. If you want to kind of make it look, really cool, that's great. But just make sure it's consistent. But for something like a calendar, that's a pretty important thing. So you might want to, think about adding it up here in the menu. You can also add it as a quick link, and that's the same kind of process. So how I might feature that, I would just open up the quick links bar, go ahead and hit the add new button here. So this is just that little teaser zone on the home page, and we'll just tease our calendar page right there. And since these all have little icons, of course, we can customize this. We'll save the original page here first, and we'll just simply customize the image there. Let's see if we can find a good calendar type thing. Oh, duh, there we go. I almost didn't see that. Select, there we go, and we hit save. Lovely. So now our calendar is going to be very easy to find on our home page. Someone can click on it directly and see, well, in this case, my calendar, but you can have a shared calendar or anything like that you would like to do. So that's another good use case for Portal. There's a lot more, right? There's a million things you can add, a million different ways to do it. If you have questions on specific ideas, things that you're interested in, now's a good time to kind of ask, and I can kind of walk you through how I might implement that or how it's possible to implement that. But other than that, there's really not much more to think about it, except that when you have your portal ready, that's the time to start inviting your users. So we kind of started off with this, but just basically as soon as you hit add new user and you type in their email address, it's going to send them an invitation. Unlike your website, which goes live when your domain switches over and that kind of thing, your portal site's kind of live as soon as you invite the first person. There's no need for it to be perfect at that point at all, right? It's going to be a work in progress because these things just take time to build, and they're also their purpose is going to change over time as your needs change. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, get those core couple things down, make sure that process is solid, make sure you've tested it, the submissions or whatever it is you're trying to do, making sure the page is organized the way that makes sense. And then just deliver on those, few core critical things that are going to be useful to everybody. Then go ahead and invite them and build from there. That's what I would recommend anyway. But let me know if you have any questions about that. We are happy to assist you with this process. I do eventually want to have a mass import feature for users. We don't have that yet, though. So if you are looking to import 70 users, one of the nice things about portals, you don't pay per user. So go ham if you want to. And I'm happy to assist you with that if it's going to be particularly laborious, because it shouldn't be for forever. All right. Let's go back in here. And so we've talked a lot about why and making sure you stay focused on that, but I thought I would show just some examples. And like I said, if you've been to any of our workshops, you might have seen some of these already, but these are different districts that have been using Portal. And if, by the way, you ever want to be featured here, let me know. But just kind of giving you a sense of how they organize their home pages with FAQs. They got an employee handbook. That's a really popular thing to include just because you kind of have to, and you have to have somewhere to put it, right? So you can kind of feature that on the home page as well. And they kind of do feature different stories and stuff in the carousel, but nothing too crazy. They have kind of a nice little page where they set up reservations for a cabin they all have. They display photographs. Stuff like this is cool. Probably won't drive a lot of usage, though, so just keep that in mind. You really want to think about those processes and make sure you're involving those in there. But they do have a lot of, process-oriented stuff, too. I just thought this stuff was kind of fun. And just, because the nice thing about this is once you're kind of moving beyond the requirements, you have a lot of room to be creative. This can be anything you want it to be and look pretty much however you want it to look. Here's another one from Marin Sonoma. Just like the kind of colorful icons and stuff they use. They're great because they have a ton of great information on the site. So they've got, information about direct deposit and payment. Everyone's interested in that, right? And being able to sign up for that. Obviously COVID stuff. They also have just like the most beautiful landing page where they've collected, all kinds of different pages about their benefits and things like that. So they've just created all those individual pages on those different subjects, and they just collect them all onto this benefits page, which just functions very well as a comprehensive resource. And then Philomath, kind of some of the original users of Portal, just have a lot of really cool stuff on there. But they do a really good job again of thinking about the process, and where I really want everyone that's adopting this to kind of have your mind centered in terms of really driving the usage and making it valuable. They had forms that they had volunteers filling out for training purposes. They had to drive them in, fill them out by paper, and then drive back out to the field or back home or whatever. So it's a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted energy. Those paper forms then had to be like mailed somewhere to some other group to certify that the training had been done, which required a ton of time investment. So that's an opportunity where we need to go, okay, wait, how can we like just make this more efficient? How can we drive this in just a much more non-laborious way? And it's important that you commit to it, because if you still accept like, oh, well, I guess you can still submit that by paper, and you have like, half the people submitting it on the website, half still doing it the old way, you're actually creating more work for yourself. And every type of job like this where I'm kind of helping people through these types of transitions to a more digital oriented approach, I'll just tell you, the more committed you are to it, the better everyone ends up, even if there are some people that complain initially. But what she set up is something kind of genius that even goes beyond kind of what Portal does explicitly, which was out in the field where these folks were training. She would tell them, hey, go to the website on your phone and go look for this QR code. Just take a picture of that QR code. It takes them directly to this web form that she built, kind of like the one that I showed you for the expenses, just a lot longer, because it's like a training roster thing. They can fill this out on their phones, hit submit. It goes to Lily, the one that sets this all up. So she's the one she's their admin and kind of she's amazing. Their tech person as well. They don't have to use paper. They don't have to travel. She doesn't have to do any kind of follow-up. She just forwards those emails on to the accreditation group, and they're good to go. And so if you are interested in that kind of stuff, let me stop moving my mouse. There are sites where you can generate QR codes. So if that does kind of make sense, that QR code will link directly to any page on your site. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, just that specific example isn't so much the point, is just really thinking through, almost like a consultant, how can we really optimize ourselves and end up saving a ton of money and time as a result of that. And of course, things like a new hire, checklist, things like that, stuff like that would be really easy to do with Engage, right? You just create that landing page, put all the new hire activities on it, and email that out every time you get a new person. Just an example of something you can kind of do there. So let's talk about next steps. There's a lot you can do at this point. So I'm really trying to encourage everyone to narrow it down as much as you possibly can do. So identify and focus on those critical processes. What are the things that you can really do better digitally than you're doing now? What are also some of the other things you want to do to make it fun and interesting and compelling and bring people together? But what are the things that are really going to drive the usage? Focus on those first, and I think that's a good start. Brainstorm and design your information architecture, or redesign it, or if you're happy with the way it is, then that's fine too. But the best way I kind of like to think about how to organize the content is just kind of think about it first, and really kind of have all the ideas out there, and then start to kind of pare it down from there. That should not be there at all. Well, these didn't get updated. Dang it. Well, I actually had other next steps, but those are old. Well, your actual next step would be, and you've already done this, so great job, Nancy, is to set up your site review, which you can do for your public or your private site, but we have one for the portal too. So if you want, then I can go in and just kind of go in there with you, make sure, things look good, that, the things are working the way that you want them to in terms of the flow of information. And if you have any questions about third-party resources, that's a good time for us to get into that as well, and I can help you to bring in the code that's necessary for that. But that's pretty much our time for this. This is mercifully a slightly shorter training than the getting started, so you don't have to listen to me for the full hour unless you have questions. I'm happy to, let me actually make sure I'm not missing any. I don't see any in the Q&A or the chat, so I'm assuming we're okay. But I'm happy to stick on here for a little bit or show you anything else in Portal or Engage to do it. Oh, awesome. Yeah, thank you, Nate. Honestly, when I saw you'd already signed up for the review, I was like, "Ooh, don't hit that thing." I was like, yes. See, I was so excited I hit this. Because that's one of the biggest things is just kind of cementing that time where we're going to have the ability to kind of review things, and then get the invites out and just kind of make it a real date. Again, it doesn't have to be all done by then, but at least it gives you something to track towards, and that's always good to have. But cool. Then I'll give you back your 8 minutes. Enjoy, or 7 minutes now. Sorry, I stole one more from you. Enjoy your lunch. Have a great weekend. We'll be checking in with you soon or hopefully before the review, but if not, then during the review. And let me know if you have any questions. You still have support. All that kind of stuff works the same through Portal or either site. So I'm here for you either way. So thanks, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.